I've been watching a lot of PSA clips trying to identify the different ways that players play the counter drop. And there is no one way to play it. You know, some people will go in holding the bottom of the grip, Greg Gaultier, for example, and love to come in and roll over the top of the ball and play it with topspin on both the forehand and the backhand side. So he naturally holds the racket a long way down, gives him extra reach, so he's able to deal with balls out in front of him. He goes in with that big lunge and then pops the ball back out. It's no surprise that he's one of the best counter-attackers, counter-punchers in the whole world. You know, he's incredibly physically strong, but then has this long reach. So he will happily drop the racket head, both on the forehand and the backhand, and then just roll the ball in, use a very, very short follow-through to dink the ball just above the tin and leave the ball very short. So he's making that court massive for his opponents. He's forcing them to go a long way up into the corner, and invariably he's leaving the ball pretty tight as well. That topspin, especially in the backhand, often leads the ball to just pop back in towards the sidewall and grip and stick, causing opponents all sorts of issues. So dropping the racket head and just using that momentum, that movement into the shot, and then having a very, very short follow through allows you to get that ball incredibly soft and stay very close to the front wall. So think about that kind of fencing motion. You're going in, you know you're under pressure, your options are limited. Simplify the swing, drop the racket head, and just practice rolling over the top of the ball or even around the side of the ball. There's this great clip here of Renima Willili playing one in the front backhand where she almost comes up the outside of the ball, puts a bit of side spin and top spin, lets the racket kind of jam into the sidewall, no follow through at all, and then the ball just rolls in tight against the sidewall. So that's an incredibly effective way when you know you're under pressure, your options are limited. You're almost saying to your opponent, you've hit a great shot, I'm struggling, I'm going to play a counter drop, but I'm going to make it very hard for you to keep the ball in play. I'm going to make it very hard for you to get the ball back. Despite your best efforts and your good attack, I'm taking my medicine and I'm sticking that ball in tight. So think about using your movement, short swing, and just extending into that front corner and really keeping that follow through short in an effort to keep the ball up the court. On the flip side of that, you look at somebody like Nick Matthew, who actually comes in, gets onto the ball quicker, and his preference is to get that racket head up above the ball. So there's this clip on the backhand, you see that he creates threat. He forces his opponent to rock back because the racket's up above the ball, thinking, geez, this could go anywhere, it could go short, it could go long. And then, by playing the counter drop, it's probably got a touch more pace on it, although Nick's got great hands, he's able to work the racket face under it, not as maybe soft as perhaps a Greg just rolling in behind it. But what it does mean, by getting that threat and forcing the opponent back on their heels, then it's difficult to generate momentum and go back in and pick that counter drop up. So there's a couple of ways of playing it. I'd argue that getting the racket head above the ball, particularly on the backhand, and then coming in and getting underneath it is harder, requires a great deal of ball skill. You've got to understand exactly where the racket face is and you're slowing the swing down. It's a very tough thing to do. So if you're experimenting with the counter drop and trying to add it to your game, experiment with both and understand what works for you, but shortening that swing up, keeping things simple and using a movement and a short follow through will allow you to dink the ball onto the front wall, keep it short, you know it's going to be there or thereabouts. If you feel confident and the ball sits up, you've got a little bit more time, then you can try and get that racket head up above the ball and cause your opponents, or give your opponents a little bit more doubt by creating some other shot options.